All right, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. It's Millennial Trade. So I've got an interesting story that I want to cover in this video. I did some research over the weekend into this sugar import ban. The Biden administration is banning or trying to ban Domino sugar imports. Everybody knows this brand. Domino Sugar, very big brand here in America. Also Florida Crystals, owned by the same people, the FanJewel brothers. And we're gonna go down this rabbit hole because there's some surprise guests in the story later on that I think all of you will kind of be interested in. So is this like a political move on Biden's part? They claim, right, the Biden administration claims that there's basically human rights violations, workers' violations, international workers' violations going on in the Dominican Republic, which is right next to Haiti, right? There's the whole issue with the Haitian gangs and the blockade and the Russian oil. I don't have time to get into that whole thing, but a lot of Haitians are migrating or crossing over into the Dominican Republic. And the Biden administration does not like the way the Dominican Republic is handling this. So I got a bunch of headlines. I did a bunch of research. Sugar is an important commodity. This is why we're covering it, because sugar is such an important commodity and it's in everything. They sweeten literally everything. It could be a vegetable drink. It could be some sort of smoothie. It could be a soda. It could be some sort of packaged bread. There is sugar. Here we go again. There is sugar literally in everything. So it's an important commodity, and it's going to be inflationary because you got to imagine, right? The Dominican Republic, the Domino sugar brand, they produce, I think it's 64% of the sugar in the Dominican Republic. So now we're not getting that. That will probably be inflationary on the sugar prices, but the sugar prices are heavily regulated. Heavily regulated. I mean, this industry is heavily subsidized. And you'll see all the political connections between Big Sugar and our current administration. It's wild. It's absolutely wild. So I'm going to pop open a Red Bull here to help me articulate all of these stories and try to wrap it up and give you guys my idea about what I think could be going on here. Always got to follow the money. And the FanJewel brothers, I'm pretty sure that's what their names are. Let me double check that. Alfonso, I think, is one of their names. Yeah, you guys can look this up. All right, so here's a headline. The royal family of Cain benefits from political giving. We will talk about that later. But I'm just trying to verify. Yeah, FanJewel. It's spelled like F-A-N-G-U-L, the FanJewel brothers. And they're fascinating. And they're from Cuba as well. They're Cuban migrants or Cuban refugees and of Spanish descent, I believe. And they started growing sugar in Florida, created this sugar empire. So that's the story we get. But when you look deeper into it, their parents and their relatives were also really big sugarcane growers or plantation owners. They own plantations, sugar plantations. I mean, this is what the mainstream media calls them in the Dominican Republic. Is it true that this company is basically making people, doing forced labor practices on their employees, making them work overtime and not paying them for it, or not giving them pension benefits or whatever it is? There's a lot of accusations here. It's hard to imagine in this day and age, and especially in this side of the world, this hemisphere, I guess. It's hard to imagine that this kind of stuff is still going on. Basically slave labor. But those are the accusations. And this is why the Biden administration says we need to shut off the imports from Domino. I don't think it's the other sugar plantations. I think it's specifically Domino Sugar, which again is 64% of the sugar production in the Dominican Republic. So that's something to consider. But let's go ahead and look at some of these headlines here because I started following this story. Where did I get this story from? I think I got this story from the Economic Ninja. I was like, it sounds interesting. I want to learn more about commodities and how regulated the sugar industry is. I mean, they literally regulate the prices. They keep the prices in America higher than on the global markets, because it's we know it's a rigged game, right? We know it's a rigged game. The U.S. blocks Dominican Republic sugar imports citing forced labor. So these were some of the headlines that started to come out. And I told you guys about the accusations. At the same time, though, we have to remember that at the same time they're doing this ban, right? There's also the political pressure for the Dominican Republic to accept, I guess, thousands, maybe 100,000 Haitians into their country. There's a lot of international pressure for the Dominican Republic to do this, basically have an open border policy. And I have read some articles, I have them in here somewhere, about how the Dominican Republic, those people they identify maybe more as mixed, whereas the Haitians are, black Africans, and there could be some I guess, ethnic tension in the Dominican Republic. Obviously, I can't verify that, but I've read about that in some of these articles. And it's hard to know what's propaganda, what's anti-Dominican Republic propaganda, what's anti-Haitian propaganda. I believe that the intelligence network community in the West, in America, especially when it comes to the media, is putting out all kinds of things about these other countries that we have to sort of read through to truly understand. Same thing with the situation in Ukraine, right? It's not good versus evil. That's just too simplistic. If anybody believes that, they're morons. And, I just kind of ignore them. But the second headline I have here is Central Romana, one of the biggest sugar producers in the world, will now be banned from exporting sugar to the U.S. after the Biden administration said it has information that, quote, reasonably indicates the use of forced labor in operations. And it's not just, how this affects us, the sugar prices. Another reason this story is so important is because if this is true, that people are being slaved and that we in the West or we in America are enjoying products that, basically American companies are allowed to, use these kind of practices on in other nations and then, import them into the country, it's a huge issue. I don't think anybody's cool with that. I don't think any American is okay with knowing willingly continuing to use something that is being produced basically by slaves. So that's another reason this is so important. If it's true, we don't know. The FanJoule brothers, they say this is not true. The company, this is Central Romana. I think that's like Domino Sugar is maybe a subsidiary of that company. But it's all the FanJoule brothers, right? This is who they're banning, which is interesting when we get into this later because of their political contributions. The politically connected FanJoule family, a family of sugar barons is what they're being called. These guys are robber barons. This is how the mainstream media is writing about them. Well, this is actually WUSF Public Media. I'm assuming this is like San Francisco. As first reported by the New York Times, no sugar from the Dominican Republic-based Central Romana Corporation will now be allowed to be imported into the U.S. And again, this is 64% of the sugar that's being produced in Dominican Republic. And there's even accusations that some of the other companies are worse, are much worse than Central Romana or Domino Sugar, the FanJoule brothers. That could be true as well. I think the FanJoule brothers actually use that as a defense because they claim they've been, over the last decade or so, updating, their working conditions, the living conditions for the people, the wages and all that kind of thing. But it's like, we enjoy a lot of stuff here in the West. Somebody's, making it. Somebody is producing it. The iPhones, the tablets, everything we use. We barely produce anything that's like tangible. And we should be, but that's a whole nother topic. The Central Romana Corporation said in a statement posted on Twitter that the allegations of forced labor do not align with reality and that it has made significant investments to improve working conditions over the past decade. And this is the best part of this article. This is the very last paragraph. Most people will never get to this paragraph because it's the very last one. I just read headlines most of the time. The headline really has to stand out, and I have to really want to go deeper on a story to actually click on it and get through it. But this paragraph, this is another point to be made, right? The news comes amid strains in U.S.-Dominican relations. Of course, right? Of course the ban comes amidst an already strained political situation because of the Haitian migrants. It goes on to say, particularly when it comes to alleged discrimination of Haitians. Just this week, the State Department issued a travel warning for Black and dark-skinned Americans traveling to the Dominican Republic, saying they might be racially profiled or arbitrarily detained. That's what I'm telling you guys. I'm reading this whole, thing about these ethnic tensions, maybe racial tensions, maybe the Dominican Republic, those people just see themselves separately from the Haitians and they don't want this open border policy, but there's all this international pressure, on them to basically just let anybody they want into their country. And then you have this propaganda. I mean, I don't know if it's true. Maybe it's true. Maybe the Dominican Republic police are out to get black people. I highly doubt it, but maybe it's true, right? Maybe it's true. And when you look into the sugar industry, right, on Wikipedia, globally, most sugar is extracted from sugar cane and sugar beet, and they need temperate climates, right? Sugar is often used for soft drinks, sweetened beverages, convenience foods, fast foods, candy, confectionery, bakery products. It's in everything. What most Americans eat, sugar is in everything. And this Domino sugar particularly is probably in a lot of these products. Sugar subsidies have driven market costs for sugar well below the cost of production. As of 2018, 3/4 of the world's sugar production was not traded on the open market. 75% of the world's sugar production is not even traded on the open market. I guess it's being hoarded by governments and stuff like that. The global market for sugar and sweeteners was some $77 billion in 2012, with sugar comprising an almost 85% share of that, sector, right? The sugar and sweeteners sector. So very interesting when you look into this and how regulated things really are. The fact that they do manipulate the prices, they keep the prices in America, for the sellers higher. And there's this whole argument that, the government is working with Big Sugar to transfer wealth from people to the corporation because sugar is so addicting, it's so sweetening. So there's that to consider too. And with the ban on sugar, right, it's probably true Americans should eat less processed sugar. If there was less sugar in our processed foods, we'd probably be better off. But this is why people buy them. It's the sweeteners. It's very addicting. I'm addicted to sugar. I'm addicted to sugar and caffeine. Americans have our vices, but I think a story like this, it's really opening my mind, not just on the commodity side of it, but the humanity side of it, the consumption side of it. It opens the door for so many questions, a story like this. And then you look into the FanDuel family, right? This is from Al Jazeera America. I'm reading from everywhere. The first article was the New York Times, and we had the San Francisco Marxist article. We had some Wikipedia. Now we got Al Jazeera America. I read it all. I read everything. From Al Jazeera, a sweet deal. The royal family of Cain benefits from political giving. The sugar barons of America, the FanDuel brothers, have a cozy relationship with the U.S. government. This is the subtitle of this article, okay? And these are supposedly the living conditions, right? This gentleman here, he actually lost his eye working on the sugar plantation, and he's 75 years old. Lost an eye cultivating cane meant for the sugar company Central Romana. He still works in the fields. It is kind of shocking, right? If this is true, if this is you know, I'm not saying it's true. I'm not saying it's a lie. This is mainstream media. This is Al Jazeera. Al Jazeera, who knows what their agenda is. If this is true, though, it is shocking, right? That there's 75-year-old men, some of them are injured or maimed, and they're still out there working. And it's like they worked their whole lives on this plantation for what? They're 75 years old and they're still out there. It's shocking. It is. We have the next paragraph here is from Washington, right? Charlotte Ponticelli used to work for the State Department, is the opening paragraph. But when she describes a recent visit to sugarcane plantations in the Dominican Republic, she ditches the diplomatic speak. She said, "What I saw made me sick." All right, it's talking about the labor conditions, the living conditions. Her quote is, "The cane workers were skeletons wearing rags." That sentence really hit me. When I read that, I started realizing how serious that situation could be in the Dominican Republic. But you have to sort of, you know, look at other things that they're telling us. Charlotte Ponticelli came from the State Department. Well, what is the State Department? That's code word for CIA. You know, intelligence could be maybe even private agencies that work with the State Department. So she came from there, right? And then she was sent to the Dominican Republic and then supposedly left working at the State Department to do activism in the Dominican Republic. And this is how the State Department works. In my opinion, they would send agents, all right, to other countries, and whether in the capacity of an official employment by the CIA or as some sort of front group, some sort, you know, maybe UNICEF, something like that, some sort of organization, a charity, could be a religious charity. There's a lot of ways that the State Department is able to influence other countries. This person out here got a fishing pole. This person out here fishing. What is going on here? I never see that. Somebody just walking around with a fishing pole. I mean, there is water over there, but I never see anybody fishing. Just take that into consideration. That's all I'm trying to say, is that when they talk about, you know, she says, "What I saw made me sick. They were skeletons wearing rags." I hope it's not true. If it is true, that is, it's absolutely shocking and something should be done about it. But remember, she came from the State Department. All right, the State Department has their own agenda, and they're telling us the truth that she's, you know, an agent for the State Department, or at least she was. So right there, it's in plain sight. That's what I'm trying to tell you guys. The information that we should be paying attention to, it's right there in plain sight. They're telling us. But she goes on, Ponticelli means the United States Department of Labor should push to improve conditions for cane workers in the Dominican Republic, one of the top sugar exporters to the U.S. And I'm reading this sentence and I'm thinking to myself, the United States Department of Labor, how much influence do they have? How much influence should they have? If it's the United States Department of Labor, I can understand how they are administrating or governing labor conditions here in the United States. But they're talking about using the Labor Department, which is probably some sort of wing of the State Department. They want to use the Department of Labor to somehow influence labor conditions in other countries. This opens up a whole nother can of worms, right? Is this valid? Is this legitimate? Is this tyrannical? Is this just? It could be just. It could be God's will, you know, for the United States to dominate the entire southern, you know, hemisphere and, you know, just influence it the way we've influenced Europe. Maybe that's God's will. But it opens up a whole nother can of worms when you start talking about using United States departments. They're supposed to be governing, you know, our sectors or our industries, focusing on labor conditions in the Dominican Republic. I mean, we literally have like hundreds of thousands of people sleeping on the streets of Los Angeles. You know, why are we not working towards fixing that issue, right? But anyways, the fact that we accept so much of this sugar that may be produced using slave labor, it's a huge issue. And it's a huge moral and ethical issue for Americans. Don't get me wrong. All right. You know, they claim the Dominican Republic, the State Department claims the Dominican Republic is failing to protect sugar workers and found working conditions still lacking. You know, and a lot of the times they say this, the government will say this. The same thing with minimum wage. You know, the end result of something like minimum wage is basically to price people out of working, right? If somebody is willing to work for $10 an hour, let's say, they're willing to do it, but the state is telling you that you have to pay them $12, $13, $14, $15 an hour, you know, this is one of Peter Schiff's arguments here about how the state is just, it's pricing people out. People who are willing to work for less, for, you know, work where you don't need a lot of qualifications, they're simply just getting wiped out because of minimum wage. But I want to move on to the FanDuel brothers. This is where it gets juicy, and we're only 21 minutes into the video. If you've stayed with me this far, guys, I want you to comment. Comment 21, 2108, 2109. You could comment 66. Just comment something. A number that means something to you in this moment so that I know you made it to this part of the video. Hit me with the numerology, guys. I want to see some creative numerology in the comment section right now. We're going to get esoteric. So the FanDuel brothers, if this is true that there's these slave labor conditions, right, in their workforce, the reason they're getting away with it is because of their political contributions, right? So you guessed it. You follow the money and you start realizing how a company potentially is getting away with this. And of course they're covering up. You know, they donated $50,000 for humanitarian aid recently for Ukraine, right? Which is a whole nother, I think that whole pool, that's a slush fund for the next Democratic primaries and campaigns. I mean, it's just crazy, but we don't have time to get into Ukraine right now. Hold on, I'm just trying to pull up this next article. Here we go. So the FanDuel brothers, this is their story, right? I told you their background. Their family were sugarcane plantation owners, and so they built this huge sugar empire, right? Big sugar. It exists. We always talk about big oil, big pharma. We never talk about big sugar. But big sugar is in bed with the government. They're in bed with everybody we all... You guys could guess. You will guess in the comment section. I know you will be able to guess who this guy is friends with. And I'm going to tell you right now. Not only does he contribute, there's two of them, right? There's two brothers. I think there's actually 3 or 4 siblings, but 2 of them claim to be, one claims to be a Democrat. The other one claims to be more of a right-leaning Republican. So they have plausible deniability because it's like, well, one brother supports one side, the other brother supports the other side. But if you think about it, they're buying both sides. So it doesn't matter who, under the guise of, oh, we're brothers. So it's not like one of us is doing this. So they're contributing as a family to both sides. This is very important to understand. They contributed to the Bushes, Obama, and they're very good friends with Hillary Clinton. Well, both of the Clintons. They're such good friends with the Clintons and the Kardashians, right, that the FanDuel brothers flew them to the Dominican Republic, all right, to spend a weekend at their mansion, right, probably right on the coast, probably not too far from the alleged slave labor camps of Domino Sugar or Romana. And so the Clintons flew down there, and the Kardashians. These 3 families, the FanDuels, the Kardashians, and the Clintons, recently, within the past year, which I find very interesting because it's like more evidence that these people are bought and paid for, like our politicians are bought and paid for by the barons, right, by the elite. I'm trying to find the article about the... I have so many of them on here. And I got to get into the political aspect of this too, because, you know, the whole open border policy thing, this is something that the Democrats truly want, and the Republicans, the rhinos. They want the Dominican Republic to have an open border with Haiti. Right? That's the goal. They want free trade of human beings. I mean, this is what they're talking about with NAFTA. And it's related to NAFTA too, because supposedly whatever's going on in the Dominican Republic is like a violation of these, you know, huge treaties that are being made by all of these countries on this part of the world. So you could see why they would want to donate to both sides, so that if the Republicans get in, you know, they've contributed so much money to them, they're not going to, you know, push any agendas that go kind of against the sugar industry, or at least that company. And if the Democrats get in, same thing. The Democrats, if they're contributing to the Democratic campaigns, right, the Democrats are not going to go after, you know, the people who are putting them in power. I mean, we're talking millions of dollars that I think they gave $1 million to one single campaign. It might have been the Biden, or I think it was the Clinton campaign. This guy, Alfonso, gave like $1 million to the Clinton campaign. The other brother, I think, supported Trump, but it's like, I don't think they really care either way. You know, the corporate elite, the banking elite, as long as they have control of the monetary system and the regulations, right? This is the other thing too. They have control of the regulators. As long as that happens, they don't really care about anything else. They just want control of the monetary system. They want control of the regulators. And this is how they're profiting, because the sugar industry is regulated by the government. The government is able to raise the prices here in America. So if you come to America, you're going to sell sugar for a higher price. But what does this essentially do? It is transferring the wealth from you and me, who are addicted to sugar, right? We're just giving our money to people like the FanJewel brothers. So we have to think about that as well, because I love Florida crystals. I love it. And I think that's actually made in Florida. I hope there's no, you know, slave labor, but it's the same company. Florida Crystals is a, you know, is a FanJewel brother company. So, you know, it's good sugar, but if it's true that they're doing this, it's not something I want to support or be a part of. And I don't think anybody else would either. But here's the thing, right? This is the catch. Politically, there's something going on in Haiti. I think the U.S. is meddling in Haiti somehow and perhaps causing instability, whether it's through media or agents on the ground. I don't know exactly, but that's my hunch, okay? We're getting conspiratorial here, I admit, but Haiti is a mess right now, and hundreds of thousands of people are trying to pour over into the Dominican Republic. And you can think about how small of a space this is. You know, the government and probably the people of the Dominican Republic, they don't want to have to deal with everything that's, you know, basically the Haitian collapse. I mean, so there's all this pressure on them. And you read in the headlines, you know, Dominican Republic expelled hundreds of children to Haiti without their families this year. You know, again, is this even true? If it is true, is there some sort of political twist, some sort of twist of words? You know, you have to think like this when you're reading these fake news media narratives. And this is coming from CNN. You know, so of course, a lot of this is fake news. But it says hundreds of children have been expelled from the Dominican Republic without their parents. There were pregnant women and vulnerable people. The United Nations Children's Agency. Yeah, that sounds like a real trustworthy, you know, organization, right? The United Nations Children's Agency has received at least 1,800 unaccompanied children delivered by Dominican immigration authorities into Haiti since the year began. And they think possibly that they're deporting people who aren't even Haitian into Haiti. But again, you see the mainstream media. You know, this is supposedly a picture, right? You see the mainstream of the Haitian migrants. You see the mainstream media putting a lot of pressure, you know, telling these sob stories about, you know, kids in shit diapers and people not being able to breathe in these rooms. I mean, you hear all of this kind of stuff. And it's like, it's coming from CNN. They've lied to me so many other times, you know. Here's another one. Authorities in the Dominican Republic, again from Al Jazeera, have rounded up thousands of Haitian migrants and anyone who looks like they could be from Haiti. And they've deported them to a country in the grips of deadly gang violence and instability, advocates say. And this is the key phrase at the end of this paragraph. Let me read this whole paragraph to you guys again. And then, because they're telling us the truth in some ways. It's highly politicized, it's highly propagandized, but the truth is here. And I'm going to read it to you real quick. Authorities in the Dominican Republic have rounded up thousands of Haitian migrants and anyone who looks like they could be from Haiti and deported them to a country in the grips of deadly gang violence and instability, advocates say. Okay, so that's what advocates say. That's what, a few rogue members from the State Department are telling us, all right? But we know that there's other political issues going on here. Why should the Dominican Republic just open their border to Haiti? Like, why should America be able to tell them to do that? These are all the questions that I guess politically we got to figure out for ourselves. But that is very concerning. That there's so many accusations of this forced labor. You also have the sugar consumption aspect to this, right? As Americans, we are consuming too much sugar, and we definitely shouldn't be consuming sugar that's produced using slave labor. But it also makes us kind of question the sugar industry in America, the relationship between the regulators and the government. You look down this rabbit hole, and the moguls or the barons of the sugar industry are in bed literally with the Clintons and the Kardashians and all of the globalist elite that want to destroy, because these are cosmopolitan people. They don't necessarily have national identity. They sort of have adopted this Marxist mindset that it's almost like the Soviet man, right? The perfect Soviet man. There's no original thought. There's no individuality. You're a part of the collective, and the cosmopolitan elite, they want us to kind of adopt this. And this is why there's so much pressure, I think, for open borders, even in a country like the Dominican Republic. They want to spread that ideology everywhere. And the Fanjul brothers are in the Dominican Republic. So you see all these connections here. But then out of the blue, Biden bans the sugar imports. Did he not contribute enough money to the Biden campaign? Did they contribute too much money to the Trump campaign? What is going on here, because they've been so supportive of Democrats and even Hillary Clinton, right? But the State Department was able to sell this story. Could be true. The State Department and the advocates and the front groups, the UNICEFs, the United Nations Children's Agency, all of these, the four-letter organizations or the three-letter organizations, we have to be very skeptical because they've lied to us so many other times. And then one more thing I want to say here. These organizations, these different agencies, these different groups, I'm not saying all of them are doing bad work or anything like that. And I'm not even saying that all of them are unnecessary. But a lot of them, like look at the Sam Bankman-Fried, where he came from. What was it called? Effective Altruism Global, right? These three-letter agencies and stuff, these are where these slimy people are coming from, right? These cosmopolitan globalist elites. And look out for their manipulation in the media. It'll come from these three-letter agencies, but they'll make up these two-letter words like effective altruism, right? And what the hell does that mean? It means jack shit. It means absolutely nothing. There's so many examples of this. Look out for that. When they use two-word phrases, you'll see it everywhere. I'm telling you, you will see it everywhere. So with that, I will leave it there. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please comment down below your thoughts about the ethical concerns, the moral concerns, the political issues. I would love to hear back from you guys. And as always, until next time, follow me on Instagram @MillennialTrades. As always, until next time, I'll see you on the next video.